Well, the reality of this world we're in is that while there are some really good highs, there are definitely some lows. As we start the show today, I'll ask the Knights to share their memories of Kelvin Kiptum, the Kenyan marathoner whose life was snatched by the cruel hand of death in the early hours of this morning. Isma.
Very tough story, and I do watch television for a living. I almost know everything that happens on television. So, and there's always a marathon on TV. When the marathon season does start, sometime in should be next month, there's going to be a lot of them. So on one morning, I think early last year, I woke up and tuned on the television, and there was a London Marathon in April on an early Sunday morning. And there was a new name, because when you tune into these marathons, you're bound, if you don't even follow much and you just catch the last 30 minutes, there's going to be a Kenyan and an Ethiopian in that leading pack every other weekend. I don't know how many runners come out of those countries. So on one of those, there's a young boy who is running, and he's Kelvin Kiptum. So he goes to London, does very well, and there are all these plaudits and everything about how good this kid was. And many of us thought, okay, it's just another Kenyan. After all, they have Eliud Kipchoge. There won't be another like him. So maybe I don't give it as much attention. So months rolled by, and then there's a marathon in Chicago. And there's a story about a boy who had run in the London Marathon, but was thinking about not going to Chicago because of resources. So eventually, like fate has it, now he's got a management team. He has people who are willing to invest in him because they see a bright future around him. And then he goes to the US and breaks the marathon record. It was never in the script, never in the script. And those happen around, if it's in the US, it's going to come around 8, 9 p.m. in the, from 5 p.m. onwards. Unlike most of the ones in Europe, which you watch at around 11 a.m. in the morning. So that's the introduction of a boy. Coming out, of course, of Eldoret, where most of his athletes come from. And in the immediate aftermath of that race that he won and then lowered the world record in the marathon, I was very intrigued. So because I spend my entire day going through stories, scourging the internet, then I find a very good story about the journey of Kelvin Kiptum, which we eventually did run in the Sunday Monitor last October, around I think the 26th. So we ran the story about how it comes from, like I think the entire Africa comes from humble backgrounds. We are all products of grass to grace. And then eventually a few of us then get the journey to move from grace to grass, but not, those are very, very few. So that's a story, and that story had a very intriguing headline. When I saw it, I spent my day trying to change headlines of things. So when I saw that, running from borrowed shoes, because initially could not afford a pair. And that's a story of so many sportsmen. Eddie Watson would tell you the first year when he first kicked a ball, he didn't have shoes. And the first ones he got were from a colleague. And it's a familiar story. So you're thinking, okay, Kenyan athletics has found another gem, or global athletics has found another one. At a time when they are struggling with so many other things, because perhaps every other month, a Kenyan athlete is caught in a drug scandal, and you're really hoping that the next one who comes out does not suffer the same kind of fate. And this boy develops an early relationship with Eliud Kipchoge, the greatest marathon athlete of all time, and you're thinking he's going to go places. And he is making an entry where he's hoping that this year he goes to the Olympics in Paris and try to win an Olympic gold medal. It may not come with the kind of prizes that come with winning in Boston or Berlin or New York or Chicago, wherever they run in the world, or Tokyo, or wherever they go, London. But the prestige of winning the Olympics. And he's been working to win the Olympics. Then late in the night, because I was doing the AFCON final between Ivory Coast and Nigeria, and then our colleague Innocent Indaula drops me a message, because we do run the newspaper on a daily basis with him. And he drops me a message that the boy who ran a story about last October is dead. And he shares screenshots, and it's an accident. And it struck me, because this is about 2 a.m. when I'm getting into my dungeon to catch a few hours of sleep. So it was really shocking. So my mind immediately, when Innocent was telling me that, my immediately goes back to looking back at our files and our library on the content we ran. Very, very tragic, the manner in which he passed on in that car with his coach. Akizamana. I was actually shocked that his coach is Rwandese. I've not known many Rwandese who do athletics themselves or coach. You would have thought maybe there is Ethiopian or Kenyan or somewhere from Britain or the USA. And like that, he's gone, barely 23. Yeah, I think Kenya has had a lot to deal with in the past with the athletes.
True.
Of course, the biggest story was Agnes Tirop, allegedly murdered by her husband, whose trial I think is starting at some point this year. And then the other month we're discussing Benjamin Kiplagat. Of course, Kenyan-born, Ugandan groomed, eventually ran for Uganda, and the man in which was murdered the other week. Another tragic one, another person destined for the very top, gone. But finally, it also reminded me when I was reading the Kelvin Kiptum story, because I've read so many of them, about those who interacted with him, those who competed against him, how they felt and how good an athlete was going to become. I was reminded of that young boy who won the marathon in 2008, Samuel Wanjiru. I think was 18 at the time. And then he died, I think, at 21 thereafter. Fell off a balcony of his house, his mansion that he had built. Of course, the story goes on whether he was pushed by someone inside the house, or there's a disturbance, or he jumped off and then jumped to his death in a case of suicide. Yeah, all these stories keep coming around. Very tragic. Rest in peace, Kiptum.
Danielle, how do you remember him?
It's sad to lose an athlete in such a way. Any other person, not only an athlete, in such a way, accidents. I don't know here in Africa what we can do about accidents, but they seem to claim a life just like that, and someone is gone. But it's so sad for him, being an athlete and the memories he has left us. But worst of all is his family, because according to what I read is that he was the only child of his father, and he has left kids, and there is that African way of life where we look to so many of our people who have made it in life, and you're like, maybe they will change the family around, and now he's gone. It's so tragical. I must say, rest in peace.
Andrew?
I think for me, the most painful, all deaths are painful, but the most painful deaths are those you feel that someone has been taken away from you. They've not been ill, they've not been struggling with something, but you wake up and they're not there. Yeah. And then you are thinking, actually, it could have been avoided. And we are talking accidents, Kenyan accidents, grisly accidents is such a story. If you've traveled in Kenya by bus or by, you know, and you see how a good number of drivers actually drive. There's a time I traveled by, I'm not going to mention the coach, but I think I had fallen asleep. I woke up when the bus was almost mid-air, and I never went back to sleep. I never went back to sleep. So if you've driven or been driven or traveled, along Mombasa Road or in Kenya, and it's clear, speed limit is 80 kilometers per hour. Now when I drove in Kenya, of course, being Ugandan, you have to keep the law to the letter. But then here are these guys who are literally flying on the road. Now this is a kid, 23, 24, who has his whole life ahead of him and who has lots of stuff to accomplish. First of all, we were going to, I was hoping it was going to happen, Eliud Kipchoge and Kiptum in Paris, from Kenya. That alone is quite a spectacle, and it's not going to happen. He's left like his family as well. He's a kid who has just gone, and just imagine he just started running, not even, about what, 2 years ago?
2 years ago,
2022. And he's just done things, maybe perhaps life is a bit strange, like someone achieves so much in a limited time and they go away, but it's quite tragic, especially given the stories that have come from that direction. We just, we lost our own the other day as well. So it's quite sad. We can only hope for his family to be strong and for him to rest in peace.
Indeed, may his soul rest in peace.